I don't have no felonies. I'm not crazy and none of that. It's like, I just want the truth, and it's so hard to get it from the courts. And seems like Jay-Z don't want to say anything. So, I don't want to see him go down for something that you could have just got taken care of. That's it.
We're witnessing a story unfold that feels less like a family dispute and more like a detonation waiting to happen. Jay-Z's alleged illegitimate son isn't just demanding recognition. He's claiming to possess material powerful enough to dismantle empires. According to his statements and those of individuals said to be close to him, he holds recordings from Sean Diddy Combs' infamous gatherings, videos described as intimate, unfiltered, and deeply incriminating. Insiders allege these files were given to him by people who identify as victims, as well as by former staff who worked behind the scenes, under one chilling condition, that he used them in court to take down both Jay-Z and Diddy. This isn't gossip whispered in dark corners. It's a declaration of war against two men who have shaped hip-hop's cultural and financial landscape for over 3 decades.
You understand? I think that they don't want, if they was in any of those freak-off tapes, if they played a part in any of those Diddy sessions, they don't want it to get out to the general public to make up their brand.
From what we've learned, the young man is positioning himself as both a witness and a whistleblower. He insists the footage he holds will expose patterns of manipulation and silence that extend far beyond ordinary celebrity misconduct. He's presented himself as a voice for those who claim to have been exploited within that world, a world where money and fame allegedly bought protection and buried accountability. But even that stance has fractured public opinion. Some observers now suggest that Jay-Z may be using his wealth and influence to suppress the evidence, or worse, to turn the accusations back on his son, framing the situation as an extortion attempt. What remains is a bitter paradox, a son who says he wants justice and a father accused of trying to buy peace at any cost. The tension surrounding these claims reached new heights the moment Diddy's conviction was announced. On October 3, 2025, the producer once known as Brother Love was sentenced to 50 months behind bars after a federal jury found him guilty on 2 counts of transporting individuals for illicit services under the Century-Old Man Act. The verdict didn't appear from thin air. During an 8-week trial, prosecutors presented harrowing testimony from Cassie Ventura and another woman identified only as Jane. Both described being transported across state lines for what the court called illegal acts, sometimes filmed during events referred to as freak-offs. The details were deeply disturbing, stories of control, drugs, cameras, and moments where consent blurred into fear. When the judge finally spoke, he said the sentence was meant to send a message. Diddy, now 55, responded in a written statement, saying simply, "I lost my way."
And I think Sam Bankman-Fried were in the unit that was 1 floor above mine. So in terms of like the setting, it's a fairly decent chance that the room I'm describing is similar to where Diddy is.
Those words landed with a thud because only weeks later, Diddy was reportedly caught by prison officials at FCI Fort Dix with a homemade beverage brewed from fruit and soda, an incident that suggested his contrition hadn't lasted long. Even from behind bars, his name remains entangled in dozens of civil cases filed by men and women who describe being coerced into his infamous private gatherings. Prosecutors have noted that many of those events were attended by the same celebrities now caught in this widening controversy. If the alleged son's recordings truly contain footage from those nights, the implications could be explosive. The material might not only link Jay-Z to a former friend's downfall, but also to acts that courts have already classified as criminal.
So what happens now is this is simply a civil complaint. And in a civil complaint, it goes through the technical legal process. Now, the distinction, Jessica, between civil and criminal, of course, is that civil is for monetary damages, right? The system can only reward you with money. There's allegations that this 13-year-old is suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, suffered depression, etc. So now you go to fact-find it, right?
Jay-Z's silence hasn't helped him. After Diddy's sentencing, the rapper faced renewed scrutiny over an unresolved civil case alleging that he and Diddy assaulted a 13-year-old at an after-party following the 2000 Video Music Awards. The lawsuit, filed by an anonymous plaintiff, claims that both men were present, that substances were involved, and that the encounter was recorded. Jay-Z's lawyers have called the suit a blackmail attempt, while Diddy's legal team dismissed it as fiction. But that same year has now become the flashpoint in this new narrative. The Sun reports that the alleged son's evidence includes recordings from the same period, recordings that could reveal who was actually in those rooms and what really happened after the cameras stopped rolling. For years, Jay-Z has battled accusations of hidden paternity. The case of Rymir Satterthwaite, now in his 30s, has lingered since the early 2010s. Court filings show repeated attempts to compel the rapper to take a DNA test and repeated refusals from his legal team. Judges in New Jersey and Pennsylvania dismissed earlier petitions, citing jurisdiction issues and expired time limits. But this year, Satterthwaite revived the claim, alleging that Jay-Z's attorneys committed procedural fraud to keep him from ever being tested. The new lawsuit, filed in late November, accuses the state court system of obstruction and demands that sealed records be reopened. Whether these filings represent genuine legal moves or part of a broader campaign is now up for debate, but the timing, arriving just days before Jay-Z was named in Diddy's ongoing scandal, has only intensified suspicion.
Jay?
Yeah.
At this point? Nah, I would want, why?
What makes the Sun's claims truly explosive isn't just the family connection, it's the suggestion that he's holding evidence from those very same parties. According to insiders who claim to have seen the files, some of the videos feature A-list attendees in moments that could raise serious questions about consent and complicity. If that material ever reaches a courtroom, it could force federal prosecutors to reopen long-dormant cases and possibly threaten Jay-Z's tightly managed empire, which now spans streaming, sports, and luxury branding. That's why whispers across the entertainment industry suggest that powerful intermediaries have already approached the young man, offering what they call support funds, which others believe are settlements in disguise. None of this has been officially confirmed, but the rumor alone has made him both a target and a potential witness. The emotional core of the saga shouldn't be overlooked either. Rymir Satterthwaite has publicly insisted he doesn't want money, only acknowledgement and justice for himself and others. Yet detractors online argue that by tying his accusations to Diddy's criminal case, he's turning personal pain into public leverage. Some legal experts see strategy in the chaos. If the Sun's testimony connects Jay-Z to events under federal jurisdiction, prosecutors could compel one defendant to cooperate against the other. In that scenario, family ties become bargaining chips, and in an industry already shaken by scandal, the mere threat of new evidence is enough to send shockwaves through their shared circle of billionaires and executives. Meanwhile, Diddy's imprisonment has done little to quiet speculation. Reports from FCI Fort Dix describe him maintaining a steady network of visitors, former business partners, music executives, even professional athletes, hinting that his influence still flows from behind bars. That detail adds even more weight to the Sun's story. If insiders truly trusted him enough to hand over confidential material, it means they still believe Diddy's grip on the industry remains dangerous. And according to those close to the situation, these individuals don't want profit, they want exposure. They see the alleged son as the one person with nothing left to lose.
Same kind of extortion that we heard when Cassie took the stand and testified on that airplane ride back from France. Diddy said, "You don't do a freak off, I'm going to release one of the freak off videos that you are profiled in and humiliate you."
We can't ignore how tightly these threads are woven: Diddy's legal downfall, Jay-Z's silence, and the sudden reemergence of a man who's been fighting for recognition since his mother's passing. With every new statement and every court filing, more names are pulled into the light. And behind each revelation, one haunting question remains: what's really on those recordings? This isn't just a son demanding answers from his father. It's someone claiming to hold the one thing Jay-Z and Diddy can't afford the world to see. If his claims are true, the fallout won't just be personal, it will be criminal. Now, whispers are spreading that more witnesses are preparing to step forward, each with copies of their own. The implication is chilling. The evidence may already be scattered, impossible to silence. And as these fragments begin to surface, we're not watching a scandal anymore. We're watching a story that's only just beginning to unravel.
You say greed?
Greed.
The money?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or the power. One of the two.
I mean, it looks more like power.
It's this spell, right?
Right.
That Jay got. That's why I kind of look at Kanye and Dame and all them. They the old me.
Right.
They the YouTube me.
Yeah.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? That this Dame look like the old YouTube me to me, because he hurt, bro.
Jay-Z's legal team has now shifted into full counterattack mode, but not in the direction anyone expected. Rather than confronting the allegations head-on or clarifying what might be on those supposed recordings, they focused on dismantling the credibility of the man behind them. In new filings, his attorneys described the paternity suit as a decades-long harassment campaign, a phrase repeated across multiple court documents as if to etch it permanently into the record. They argue that every accusation, every hint of family betrayal or hidden evidence, is part of what they call a pattern of legal manipulation. But to those watching closely, the irony is impossible to ignore. The alleged son maintains that those same lawyers privately approached him, offering quiet payouts not for recognition, but for silence. What one side calls extortion, the other calls intimidation. And somewhere in between lies a truth that could destroy either narrative, depending on which one breaks first. This fight has taken on new urgency because of what's at stake. If the alleged videos are real, and if they contain what insiders claim, private encounters, coercive behavior, and vulnerable individuals, then Jay-Z's danger goes far beyond family court. The footage could expose him to criminal liability, not just public disgrace. We've already seen what happens when federal prosecutors decide to act. Diddy's empire crumbled once investigators stepped in, leading to his conviction on 2 counts of transportation for intimate services under the Mann Act, a verdict that earned him more than 4 years behind bars. And those charges, by legal standards, were narrow. If any new evidence connects Jay-Z to acts involving minors or coercion, the fallout could be catastrophic, far surpassing Diddy's 50-month sentence. That's why investigators, journalists, and gossip outlets have all turned their attention back to the March 2024 federal raid on Diddy's Miami mansion, where agents seized computers, hard drives, and phones. The question now is chillingly simple. Were they searching for the same footage the alleged son claims to hold, or was that raid the first quiet attempt to contain a scandal that's only now beginning to surface?
I mean, let's just be real for a second. There are a lot of lawyers who call this legal extortion, and that this is the way the legal system works, which is you threaten somebody with reputational harm, and in this case, it's interesting that Jay-Z, who's very wealthy, said it would be financial ruin.
We can't ignore the timing. That federal raid took place months before Diddy's formal indictment, during a period when both he and Jay-Z were still appearing together at high-profile events, posing for cameras, smiling for interviews, and projecting unity. Yet, behind the scenes, insiders say communication between their teams became unusually intense. More encrypted messages, more private flights, more meetings that never appeared on any public itinerary. Former security contractors have even hinted that storage materials were quietly relocated from properties tied to both men in the days leading up to the raids. None of these movements have been officially confirmed by law enforcement, but the pattern, the sudden tightening of silence, the digital cleanups, the overlapping travel schedules, is impossible to overlook. For years, Jay-Z and Diddy's fortunes climbed in perfect parallel. Their names were synonymous with success, luxury, and influence. But now, their downfalls seem to be mirroring each other in real time. The emotional undertone of it all runs far deeper than money or image. It raises a question that has split public opinion straight down the middle. Why would victims and insiders trust Jay-Z's alleged son with something so volatile, so career-ending, so dangerous? Some believe he's the only one outside their empire we've seen this play out before in the music industry. Loyalty collapsing under the weight of too many secrets, too many debts, too many late-night calls with both motive and backbone. Someone scarred enough by personal betrayal to act without fear. Others insist he's being used a pawn in a much larger game, deployed by powerful rivals who want to see two titans destroy each other from within. That could never be repeated in daylight. But this time, the stakes are different. This isn't just about betrayal. It's about evidence, hard drives, recordings, and digital trails that could rewrite the legacy of hip-hop's most powerful alliance. And if even part of that evidence is real, then the story unfolding isn't just a scandal. It's a countdown.
That he has, with others, and just because no one else has been charged, which normally in a RICO case, you would have others charged. It was a statute that designed to get mob bosses, trying to get at criminal behavior that's like a web of criminal behavior that you can't necessarily prove like the one thing or the statute of limitations expired on the other thing, but you're just showing this bad guy who's operating what's clearly an enterprise that over and over engages in criminal problems or criminal acts.
Meanwhile, we've all seen Diddy's letters from prison, the ones written before and after sentencing, where he spoke of losing his way and being humbled to the core. To the public, they sounded like repentance. But to those who've known him for decades, they read more like strategy, a carefully crafted tone meant to soften the blow of a legacy collapsing in real time. The man once called Puff Daddy now spends his days inside a New Jersey correctional facility, reportedly counseling younger inmates while still maintaining quiet control over fragments of his business through intermediaries. On paper, he's been stripped of power. In practice, he's still pulling strings. And that raises the question no one inside the industry wants to ask aloud. If Diddy truly has no knowledge of these alleged videos, then why do his lawyers keep filing motions about the digital evidence seized during that 2024 raid? And if those recordings were harmless, why are so many of his former associates hinting they were part of his downfall? Jay-Z's silence, in contrast, feels meticulously engineered. He hasn't publicly acknowledged the Sun's statements, nor has he commented on the latest lawsuit beyond broad denials of the civil allegations linking him to Diddy's infamous 2000 after-party. Behind the scenes, though, his team has doubled down on a playbook built around two words: discredit and delay. According to court insiders, his attorneys have filed multiple extension requests, citing procedural delays, each one buying just enough time to trace the alleged Sun's communication network. The unspoken message is clear: contain the source before the footage spreads. But what remains unclear is whether that footage still exists or if it's already slipped into multiple hands. Industry veterans whisper that copies may be circulating overseas. One post-production technician claims that months ago, a third-party consultant mentioned being approached with highly compromising material involving a top-tier artist. Another insider says a group of journalists in London was offered encrypted files allegedly showing footage from Diddy's white parties in the early 2000s, gatherings that have long been the subject of whispered speculation. None of these claims can be independently verified, but the rumor alone has turned the atmosphere radioactive. Every leak, every anonymous thread, every whispered drop on social media only deepens the tension. Someone somewhere seems to be playing a very long game, and if even half of what's rumored proves real, the final move could shake the foundations of the entire industry.
So he put his hands on females, put his hands on producers, executives. That's just his. I guess that's what the whole name Bad Boy comes from. That people don't really understand. What is it? What is a bad boy? Why did he choose that name? Like he never really gave a clear definition of how he feels about that name. Not yet.
Behind all the noise, the question of motive looms large. What does the Sun truly want? On one hand, he speaks of justice and truth. On the other, critics argue that he's courting media attention and potential financial gain. His supporters call that unfair, insisting that no amount of money could ever compensate for decades of being ignored by a father who built his empire on authenticity. Yet skeptics point out how conveniently his revelations coincide with the most precarious moments in Jay-Z's public life. Is this vengeance or courage? Is he exposing corruption or trying to leverage it for himself? These are the questions we have to ask when we examine the lives of the powerful. Every story of success carries a shadow. Every empire hides its compromises. The psychology here is complicated. Jay-Z and Diddy were once two halves of the same coin: Brooklyn grit versus Harlem polish, ambition versus indulgence. They became billionaires not only through music, but through a meticulous mastery of image, influence, and control. Now that image is cracking. Diddy's empire has already faltered under the weight of legal consequences. Jay-Z stands like a fortress, but a fortress under siege, its foundation shaken not by tabloids, critics, or rivals, but by family. In this moment, the danger isn't merely exposure. It's paranoia. Because once the cracks appear, even the strongest empire can be destabilized from within, and the fear of what might emerge can be more destructive than the truth itself.
So, as we look at Jay-Z's life, he's a billionaire, married to Beyonce. Do you feel like he's truly reaped the karma of all his actions?
Where the karma is at?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, we don't see it.
Or do you feel like he ever will?
I feel like if you done people wrong, you done people wrong.
We're also hearing that federal investigators could reopen parts of Diddy's case if any new recordings surface. Remember, his conviction was narrow because prosecutors couldn't prove the larger network behind the infamous parties. If this alleged footage connects others to the same acts, it could trigger a wave of indictments. That's why Jay-Z's legal team is desperate to label the Sun's story a hoax. They know that once evidence emerges, denial becomes impossible. Yet the more they deny, the more questions arise about why their focus seems aimed at silencing the messenger instead of clarifying the record. Some sources have even hinted at the involvement of other major figures in the entertainment world, names that, if verified, could make this the biggest scandal in music history. The notion that these recordings might implicate not just rappers, but executives, producers, and political donors has the industry on edge. Confidential calls have reportedly been made to crisis PR firms, and a few brands quietly paused collaborations linked to Roc Nation. None of this has been addressed publicly.
As far as, is he going to turn people in? Is he going to cooperate? If the federal government wants him to cooperate, and they're going to cut his time, because right now he's looking at 15 to life. With all the charges he had to. He won't get out till 70 years old. He about 70. That's when they start talking about letting him come to a halfway house.
But the silence speaks louder than any statement. As tension builds, the story continues to twist. Diddy writes from prison claiming he seeks peace. Jay-Z avoids cameras entirely. Meanwhile, the alleged Sun hints online that more receipts are coming. If true, the next release could be catastrophic. Because even one frame confirming insider accounts would shift the narrative from lawsuits to criminal charges, from controversy to destroyed legacies, from gossip to the potential end of a cultural dynasty. Jay-Z's lawyers insist the Sun's claims are frivolous, while Diddy's camp maintains the videos don't exist. But if that's true, why are both so determined to make sure no one ever sees them? Perhaps this isn't just about justice anymore, it's about survival. And that brings us to the question no one in their circle wants to answer. What happens when the truth finally leaks, and it isn't the story they built their empires on? Is this the beginning of hip-hop's biggest reckoning, or just another masterclass in distraction by two of the genre's smartest players? Let us know in the comments, because the storm is only just getting started. Until next time, stay curious, stay sharp, and remember, what's whispered in private has a way of reaching the light.